So thank you all so much for making time on a Wednesday after finals to join us on another session of DID webinar. These sessions are I'm very passionate about these sessions because it's something that we all need. Today we're talking about your personal statements. If you've missed any of our sessions, you could always go watch the videos from our YouTube or our Facebook or any of our social media links. But do watch it. It will come in handy. My name is Luma Chenyi. I am the Vice President of Diversity in Dentistry, and I'm also the programming chair. And one of the things that I have been trying to insist on for programming is making sure that we can help the pre-dents, because that is like the last push that you have in order to fulfill that dream of being a dentist. So I'm always open to feedback. You all have access to my emails. Please do let me know if there's any programming that you all will find helpful. On on that note, as you all know, I am also a student at Texas Tech El Paso, and the topic for today is about that personal statement. It is not just for the application. Believe me, you will need that personal statement for a lot of things. And in as much as we are unique in our own way, it is important to be able to tell the story of why we think we want what we want. So I'm very humbled and excited again, second time in a row, to have my classmates. I have Kofi, I have Kiana, and I have Shin. I'll give them a chance to introduce themselves, but we all go to school together. They're my classmates, and their story is just so impressive that I think it'll be important for them to share. That way it helps you in designing what your own personal statement will be like. So who wants to go first, or do I choose? Shin. You knew that was coming.
Okay, hello guys. My name is Shen. I'm same year as Luma, becoming D3. I'm happy to be here. Let me know if you have any questions about personal statement, or it can be other topic, I guess, if we have time. I'm not sure. This is my first time joining here. And so, yeah, let me know.
Thank you, Kofi.
Hello, guys. I'm Kofi. I'm from Dallas. Went to UH for 4 years. Also, classmate of Luma, Shin, and Kiana. We're all D2s, going on to D3s. Halfway there. Any questions like after this? I'm always available and always just willing to help out anybody that needs it.
Thank you, Kofi. And Kiana.
Yes, I'm Kiana. I grew up as a military brat, so I don't really have a hometown, but I did live in El Paso the longest. I went to UT Austin for my undergrad, and I majored in biology, and I did some minors on the side as well. And like everybody said, I'm a D2 student. We're about to be in our D3 year, so we'll be in clinic full time, so that's exciting. But yeah, we'll all have different personal statements, and if you all have anything that resonates with you, feel free to contact me. We'll put our information in the group chat.
Thank you all so much. In the interest of time for the rest of the participants, if you don't mind introducing yourself in the chat, that way we make sure we get the most from our panelists. So if you could introduce yourself in the chat or just highlight what it is that you're doing, how far along you are in your application process. And if you have any questions while we talk, do feel free to put that in there. But talking about this topic of personal statements, I know there is all kinds of information out there. So for our panelists, anybody that wants to go first, what do you think were the important components to include? Like, should I talk about my braces when I was 8, or should I talk about admiring that dentist that I see on Instagram? Like, what components do you think are essential for a personal statement?
I guess I can go first. So I would say your personal statement should definitely include your passion toward dentistry. Of course, if it is something about um, very generalized paragraphs, such as, I had a experience in this, dentist office, and it was very cool. I want to be one of them. That's not very sufficient enough. It needs to be something more tied into your own experience that shows how passionate you are into this dentistry career, I guess. And so you can kind of talk about your experience in shadowing or maybe volunteering, of course, and say why it becomes so clear to you that this is the path that you want to take other than something that is more lucrative, maybe physician, engineer. It can be anything else that can, make you earn money. But why did you even choose to go to a dentistry?
Thank you so much. Kiana? Kofi?
Yeah, and I'll branch off of that. I'm not gonna lie, that was me. The whole braces thing and everything. That's like kind of how I got interested in everything. But not everybody like started off like really young wanting to become a dentist or anything. So you don't have to have like, a story like that where it's like I've always wanted to do it. I think the personal statement is more about just who you are. So it's like it doesn't matter where your journey started or anything like that. It's all about who you are and just basically tying into like why you want to do dentistry and why dentistry is important to you and everything, because it's kind of like the first step into securing that interview in my eyes. So it's kind of just your opportunity to like stand out from that perspective.
Thank you. And Kofi, don't forget to add that not just the braces, but the infant tooth.
Oh yes.
Thank you, Kiana.
For me, I would say that you'd want to avoid like general statements like I like to help people or I like this or that, because those same statements can be applied to other professions. And so I think that was like the main thing. It's just bouncing off of what Shin and Kofi said. You want to make sure that it's evident why dentistry, exactly dentistry. Because if you say things that can be applied to medicine or nursing or can be applied to engineering, it's not really explaining why you chose dentistry. And so that's one thing that I would say. And also I would say to talk about a defining moment of like when you knew the dentistry was the career for you and kind of tell a story. So my personal statement kind of starts from the beginning of when I didn't really know that dentistry was going to be my career at the end of the day. And then I did like in sequential order, like the events that led up to me choosing that. And so my personal statement was kind of like a story. Like I used what is it called, like sensory writing, like it's something that I learned in like an English class, but it just makes your like if you can find a unique way to tell your story, it'll set you apart from other applicants. And yeah, just to make sure you're avoiding general statements.
Thank you so much for ending on that, because that is our next question. For a lot of people, we have like a whole bunch of things that we think are special and unique to us, and you're trying to find that one to highlight in your personal statement. So what advice do you have for any applicant on how to find that unique angle in their story? Like everyone has that unique thing. So how do you choose which one was the one you were going to capitalize on for your personal statement? And what advice will you give to applicants that are struggling to find that unique angle for themselves? Not all at once.
I can go first. So what I did to find my uniqueness is I wrote a lot of diaries. I wrote a lot of about myself and how I learned during the shadowing, and basically like, and it can be basically any topic, to be honest. It just helps you to realize what kind of person you are and what kind of things that you like, what kind of things that like when you are working, what kind of working style you have, like am I more people team player or am I more like independent worker, or like how do I concentrate? All these things can be learned by writing diary. It's very simple every day, and then you can kind of go back to your old diary, and then that can be a good resource and information about you that you can catch where you learn about your uniqueness, and then you can use that information and then try to start with that, make some short paragraph, and then go from there to write a big essays.
Thank you.
Yeah, I really like what Shin said. I was thinking something really similar. If you're struggling with that, I would say just get a piece of paper or an iPad, since that's what everybody uses nowadays. And just kind of just like brainstorm like just different things about who you are, and just kind of write it down and just kind of see what you're working with. And not everything has to relate like directly back to dentistry, like oh, I like to sew, that's the same as suturing. It could just be mundane things like I don't know, I like to play chess or something, and just kind of find a way to like reverse engineer that and find a way to kind of make it apply to dentistry in some sort of way is what I would suggest.
Thank you.
So I did similar things that they both said, but another thing I also did when I was in the application process is I used my friends and my family for everything. So before I even started, and I started with the brainstorming, I asked them like, what about me makes me me? Like what is unique about me in comparison to other people that you know? And then they'd say things that I didn't even like realize that I do, or I say, little things that make me me to them. And so it was cool to have a different perspective because I can write about myself, but it's cool to hear what other people have to say about you too. And so I was able to take everybody's point of view, like my own and others, before I started my application.
No, I'm not mean like you.
Thank you for sharing that, because that kind of segues into the next topic. For a lot of us, we are taught not to brag, not to highlight our highlights. So how do you advise someone to go about talking about the things that they're proud of without coming across as cocky? Like, how can you emphasize your achievements without, like, how do you balance bragging about yourself and being open to learning more? Because everyone that is applying to dental school thinks they're the best of the best and they'll make the best dentist. How do you balance that I know I'm great, but I'm willing to learn?
I'm not gonna lie, I got humbled when I was going into the process, because I was thinking like, I'm an athlete, I'm doing this, no other dental student is like, like me. And my mentor let me know very quickly that, there's all sorts of people that are getting into dentistry. So you can't really rely on that. But as far as accomplishments, there's like so many, the application process is such a long process. There's like specific parts where you can include all your accomplishments and everything. Like I think it's under like awards and honors or something like that. So you don't have to force it by trying to cram everything in your personal statement, like I did this, I did that, or anything. I would say like include the accomplishments if it directly ties into who you are, or if it like directly benefited, like if it directly helped you grow into what you are and everything. And that's what I would say.
For this one, I would say to brag about yourself as much as possible in your activity section of your application, but you can use one of your essays because there's like the optional ones and then there's the personal statement. You can use one of those essays to talk about areas that, or like a place that you've grown from. So I use one of those essays to basically talk about my upbringing with my mom, who has bipolar disorder. And so I have my own weaknesses from that as well. And I use that essay to talk about that. And it gives the reviewers like a different side of you as well. And then in your interview, I would also say that you should be able to not only identify your strengths, but your weaknesses as well. Like, don't say something that is like something that will not get you into dental school, but something that you like, a weakness that you can explain that you've grown from, or a weakness that you can kind of turn into a strength. And so I think that that's a good way to balance bragging about yourself versus being humble, but like a humble, great student,
Okay.
My perspective is a little different, just because, so I don't know, it's just me or not, but I tend to be more reserved about talking about my positivity than negativity. And so I should be the one who kind of brags more, and it tend to be work better than not bragging, because sometimes you just have to kind of be more confident than you usually like baseline is, just to how do I say, like during the interview it's better to be overconfident than not confident. How about that? So essay wise, you don't have to be too reserved, to be honest. Don't be too worried. I would say just a little bit bragging yourself. That's how I would put it.
Thank you. Um, um, on the other side of bragging about yourself, it's bringing up your sob story. All of, there's some people that have like that sad story of what they overcome, like the thing that, like when you're talking about like overcoming and showing like resilience and stuff. How far do you think you should push it? Like how much of the resilience and overcomer and all of that do you think should be included in a personal statement? Because we all want to talk about this thing that was supposed to destroy me and I rose from it. And now I'm able to handle anything and I can handle being a dental student. How much of the thing that you overcome should you be including in your personal statement? And how important do you think that it should be to even include it at all?
I want to say like it doesn't work, but it can. I'm not gonna lie, it can be effective if used like the right way. Like it can't ever be like from the standpoint and oh, I overcame this. This is the only C I got in this class, and it was because I was going through this, that, and that. Um, it can't be from the standpoint where you're trying to get your reader to feel bad for you or feel sorry for you and saying like, let's get this person in because they've gone through so much and like, you know, they deserve the world. It can't be from that perspective. It just has to be like, this is what molded me into who I am today and everything. So it has to be like how it built you up. So it can't just be like, oh, this happened to me and just that's it. Like it just has to be like, this is what made me become who I am. And this is why I'm strong, resilient, confident, and all that stuff. So just kind of build off of that. And also, they do also have an optional essay where you can definitely highlight a lot of that stuff. So that is also definitely a factor as well.
Thank you.
For me, like Kofi said, I didn't put any trauma or baggage in my personal statement at all. My defining moment didn't have to do with anything that I went through. So I basically talked about my defining moment of why I chose dentistry, and then my personal statement went that way. Anything extra that I wanted to talk about that would like explain like why I am the way I am today or who I am today, it was in my other essays. And so there's nothing, I don't think there's anything wrong with putting it in your personal statement. I just strayed away from that because I didn't want that to be like my defining trait to these reviewers. Like I didn't want them to be like, this is her story and that's it, you know? And so I put that in my other essays.
My opinion about this is think it backward. Like think it as if you are the hiring person and reading that essay. Is that appropriate for this, for me to pick this person if I read this essay or not? Is this person going to be a good dentist or not? And so those setbacks, if it is related to dentistry, of course, you should write it. You can say maybe about your experience dealing with the hard case, or you were dealing with a difficult patient or something like that, or some setback that makes you look like you are going to be a strong dentist. If not, it's not going to help you that much because it's not about you per se, but more of like you becoming a good dentist.
Thank you so much. So those are like two extremes, like over bragging or like over being like over like pulling at their heartstrings. But then I'm sure we've all seen there are like some no-nos. Like, what are like those pitfalls that you think that should not be included in a personal statement? I say it because for a lot of people, like the personal statement, because like a lot of schools are talking about this holistic approach where it feels as if they read the personal statement before they look at your grades, and your personal statement feels almost as important as your grades are. So, with that in mind, what are some no-nos for the personal statement? What are some pitfalls that you think a lot of people do not see as something that they should not do, that they still do? For instance, like there's some people that will still start their personal statement like it was on my summer break of my that I decided that it was the best idea for me to pursue dentistry. Things like that, like an arbitrary opening catchphrase. What are other pitfalls that you can think of that is like recommended not to start with or not to include?
I can go first about this. Please don't write about how you. That one was really good. The one that Luma just said, and also the one about financial gain. Please don't write about you want to be rich. That's why you want to be dentist. You want to be OMFS, earning I don't know like $1 billion. Just no, like don't write that. Some people write that. It's crazy.
Yes. And Kiana had already mentioned the one about not being like, oh, my dream is to help people, because there are so many other things that you can do to help people.
Okay. I have a few. I would say one. I would say the biggest things is, you know, everybody knows like dentists are supposed to be smart and everything, but you can't like chat GPT it. Like you can't, overdo it with like a bunch of big words, trying to like, be like show off how smart you are and how good you are with language. Like I would say you have to talk like you're a normal person, like just like almost like a conversation, just like an interview. So I would just stay away from like the, overusing the big words. Um, I remember mine, it started off like kind of goofy, gimmicky. And you don't want to do that either because you just want to just be normal. Like you don't want to make it seem like it's like some sort of like skit or anything like that because you want to grab their attention, but you don't want to overdo that. So I would definitely say those are the biggest things. And one last thing is I had like I used to have like so many people reading over my essays and everything because I want to make sure like I was doing it right. And this one really got to me. So I had a dentist. She was basically saying not to basically stay away from the pronouns. So I was like using I too many times or my or me or whatever. I don't know like how applicable it is, but she was saying like there's too many of like I's, me, me's and everything. So like just cut down on that. So it was really hard. So I was able to cut that down to like a minimum. And to be honest, like my essay sounded like way better. It flowed way better and everything. So I would say that's definitely something to consider while writing your essay.
Thank you.
I think they hit on everything that I could think of too. So
Okay. And then to the one that is near and dear to me, gaps in your experience or gaps in your education. A lot more people are taking gap years, not 15 years like I did, but a lot more people are taking gap years. How do you think is the best way? Like, what advice will you give to explain the gaps that applicants will have in their academic journey, or anything that might be considered as a weakness? As Kofi mentioned, that C in organic chemistry one. How do you think is the best way to address those gaps or any weaknesses in the application?
Personally, for me, I'm unique in this aspect. I say go travel. Like that's just me. But I guess it just depends on your situation or like where you are. But I feel as though if you feel somewhat comfortable, I'm not saying I had the greatest stats like coming out of undergrad or anything. Um, so you can take a post back to like just be more marketable for dental schools and everything. But for me, I decided to go teach English in Spain for a year, and I feel like that experience for me was like just so much because I got to take a break from school. I got to kind of decompress, take a step back, focus on just like interviews and everything. So I would definitely consider just traveling. Also, it's definitely a good talking point for interviews and everything. So it's definitely beneficial for that because it definitely helps set you apart as well. So I would say probably don't be afraid of like, just going abroad or anything. You can either do that or post back. I feel like you can't go wrong with life and one.
True.
I think I would say because I took a year off from school, but in that year I was working, so I was doing dental related stuff. So I could use it for my application. But if you are someone that it did not or was not able to do that, I would say the best way to explain it is to at least say what you learned or how you grew in that time that you were off. And so whether it's dental related or not, that experience that you had to have like changed you in some way. And so maybe you could turn it into a positive. And so I know people that took years off because either they had children, they had death in the family, or they were doing something else that even maybe just doing stuff for their own mental health, like traveling or like, things that make them happy. With traveling, there's things that you can explain, like I learned a lot about this culture, it changed my view about this, and so I feel like you can turn those gaps into positives in some way. And I think the best way is to say how you changed in that time or what you learned in that time or how you grew in that time.
To be honest, I'm not sure how negative it is to take a gap year for the application, because it just sounds to me if there's any circumstances that make you become, that you have to take gap year. I mean, by just explaining just 1 to 2 sentences to the interviewer, I don't think it's going to make it like make you a bad applicant, to be honest. And so it's just, you just have to explain it in a very appropriate way instead of just saying, oh, I had fun during those time or something like that, just I don't think it's going to be that bad, to be honest. And so you don't have to be too worried about it.
Wait, real quick, can I add something?
Sure.
So, going off of what Shin is saying, I would say, like taking a gap year I feel like it's getting a lot more normalized. So if you have to take a year or a few years or something, I feel like it's normal as long as you're able to come back with a good reason. And those reasonings can set you apart because from my understanding, dental schools, they want more mature applicants anyways, because more mature students, like Luma or Shin, are probably like, a lot more locked in and more like, involved with like school stuff and everything than somebody that's just fresh out of school or something. So there's definitely nothing wrong with taking a year or a few years to just kind of like just do whatever you have to do. I would never see it like, oh, I graduated like 4 years ago and I'm still not in school. Like, it's too late for me. I would never think that because it's never too late.
The only thing I would say based off of that is in one of my interviews, I think it was from Houston. He had asked me like, do I feel like I would be capable to handle the rigor of school because I took a year off? And that was just 1 year. And so I can imagine how like the people that took 4 or 5 years off, what they would say about them. And so my only thing is that just to be cautious of that I feel like that's the only downside that they would possibly say is that maybe you've taken some time off of school, so you're not used to like being in classes 8 to 5 or studying all like after you get off of school. And so maybe talking about what you did in that gap year to keep your mental strong would help.
Thank you. Do any of you want to address like a weakness? Like for instance, like what if this is my third time applying? Like how do I address that? Do I address that in my personal statement or in the application? Like what if I have done the postback and I still did poorly on the DAT? Like how will how will I bring that up in my personal statement? Do you think it's a good place to bring it up in my personal statement, and how do I bring it up?
So
Are
I
you
did
asking us?
write my essay to including about my undergraduate class where I got like lower score, and I talked about that I retook those class and I got better score. I learned so much about that class, and I learned about, it was about, I think it was some engineering class that I had to work with other people or something. And so like I said, okay, like I learned how to work with other people and got a good score. And so you just have to show that you had a little well, what you say,
Hiccup.
how do I say, like you got better from it, even though you don't have to say I failed. You can say I have learned from it.
Sure.
I personally knew maybe two people that they applied 2 or 3 times before they got in. And what they said that they did is basically um, explain that they're applying again because they have that much of a passion for dentistry. Like it's expensive to apply and to get in. And so the fact that they are applying again in these cycles means that they're spending a lot of money and time and dedication. And so that meant that dentistry is really what they want to go for. And then they would explain or talk about what they did differently between cycles. So if you're applying and then you don't get in and then you don't do nothing different to like boost your application and you apply again, of course, you're not going to get in again. And so what they did is explain like what they did over that time of that next cycle to make their application better or their scores better or this or that.
Yeah, I like that you mentioned that because a lot of people are hesitant about putting the gaps and a retry. And I see a lot of our regulars, like most of you know, I graduated undergrad in 2005. And then I started dental school in 2022. That's not even 15, that's 17. That's a 17-year gap that I had to explain. And explaining that as a learning experience, as a growth experience, as something that was beneficial to me in the process. That is what made it stood up, because I was like, yeah, I'm coming here a lifetime after I should have, but it's because of this, and I think I'm better off because of this. And as Kiana Riley said, like if you are reapplying again, because we do have some people that feel like I've tried enough. I feel like if it's that passion, there is never enough. You try again and try again and try again, because it does show that dedication and that passion. So the gaps in your resume, or areas that you consider as weakness, because to me, a weakness is just failure to try. So long as you can try again, that is not a weakness. But if there is that part in your resume or in your professional career that you feel that is a gap, it's something that you can always fill it up with like experience or lessons learned. And then we are coming up on 15th, and I'd like to I'll ask just two more, and then we'll go to questions from our participants. So Kiana has mentioned that she did get help from like everyone in like reviewing her resume. There are some people that feel like in reviewing their personal statement, there's some people that feel like this is too personal and I should not show some people. What advice do you give for someone that actually needs a second set of eyes? Because when you write in your own voice, you cannot really tell what it is that you're writing. Sometimes it's important to get like a fresh pair of eyes, or somebody that doesn't know you, or somebody that knows you really well. What advice will you give for revising? Because I know for most people, me in particular, I turned in my personal statement version, I think 15 or 16. What advice do you give for like the revisions that should be made, and what are you revising?
I'll say if you have that problem, your personal statement is probably fire, because if you have a personal statement where you can just give to anybody and show just about anybody, it most likely doesn't, like, it probably doesn't have the most substance behind it. And that's just a generalized way of saying it. My whole entire point is saying like the personal statement should be like just kind of private, where it's just like, you're almost like, I don't want to say confiding, but you're basically just revealing like just your inner you and everything to your reader and everything. So I think if you're having that issue, I think it is good. But at the same time, you have to be able to kind of get over that in order to get the revisions you do need. But you definitely want that aspect in your personal statement where it's just you wouldn't just, put it on a big screen for everybody to see without feeling kind of weird or anything. So I definitely think that's a good emotion to have with your personal statement.
I would say here that if you do have friends that you can, like, you feel comfortable showing your stuff, your essays, then go ahead and for sure do that. There's some friends that I had read certain essays, and then some I didn't want them to read it. Like my mom, I didn't want her to read my optional essay. It was about her. So I asked other people to read that essay. And so, but if you don't have that at your disposal, what I would suggest is reaching out to, I don't know, I feel like social media is very helpful. Like I've actually had some prenatal students from UTEP try to follow me on Instagram simply to ask if I look at their essay, because they didn't have someone to ask. And so there's definitely dental students, minority dental students that will be there to help you because we want to help the next generation, you know? And so of course it's time consuming and things like that, but we'll do it for free. Because I know that a lot of us don't have the funds to pay for people to professionally look at our essays. And so that's another thing I would suggest. It's worked with me. And of course it's gonna take some time to find some dental students, but they will make the time to try to help you. I would say not to like have them revise, but maybe once here and then once there, you know, because they're also busy. But I feel like that would be helpful if you don't have people in your circle that can help you.
And I'll just interject there because Diversity in Dentistry does review your personal statements for you. If you send it to VP at Diversity in Dentistry, that comes to me, and I do have some other mentors that do not do one-on-one mentorship, but they'll review your personal statement for you and put the comments. So for those that have reviewed your personal statement, all those comments were not from me. But we will review it and put the comments on there. But it's really important to find a different set of eyes to read it. That way you get a second opinion or a different or a third or a fourth opinion. Shin, did you have anything to add?
Well, I guess it depends what is the revision is about, right? Is it about the grammar or is it about the
Context.
content? Okay, because if it is about grammar, everyone can fix it for you, like or sound better or something. But if it is about content, nobody can do it for you. You have to come up with your own content. Like there's nobody can like provide you how unique you are, how you are passionate about your dentistry. Like there's no way people can give that information to you and revise that for you. So get ready for all the content, and then if you're comfortable with that and you think that those are good body paragraph, good intro, good conclusion, and that's when you get it to revise.
And I like what Shin mentioned earlier for the best way to start is just to start writing. Like write as much as you think you need to write. Write everything that you think should be included, and then you start editing. It's better to have to take away words than trying to come up with the words to fill up the space. But it's better to like write everything that concerns you and concerns dentistry, and then you now try to narrow it down to the things that you think are important for the admission officers to know. I would like for us to go into some questions from our participants. So let me scroll up to the first one. So Onesti, is you here? So Onesti was asking, like, how do you think is the best way to start writing? Like, how do you begin? Do you start with a truth or an attention-grabbing phrase, or my name is? Like, how will you begin?
I think having, like every good story, I think having, or every good show, I watch a lot of shows. I definitely think having a good hook is good, like, within the first paragraph, first couple sentences, just to kind of just like reel the readers in and just kind of get them engaged since they read so many different statements every single day. So I definitely think just like having a good intro and just like branching off the intro and just getting into like the body of your personal statement is a good way to start. But I think the best way to start is really just brainstorming just who you are and just kind of just like what Luma was saying, just write as much as you can, just rough draft, and then from there start thinking about like, you know, the intro and different things of that nature.
Anyone have anything to add?
You can also start like as if you're writing a story, like what happened like on that moment that you want to describe. And then you say you're kind of writing about like as if you're writing a novel, but then you're describing the moment. Maybe you can start like that if you want to talk about if there's a significant moment that made you decide going dentistry.
Okay, and I like this question because I would like to hear you all's answers to it. But how long does it take to write a personal statement?
I
Personally,
know.
I'm writing it myself, new one for my residency, and I started writing right now, even though it's
It is not due for another year.
yeah, it's for another year, but I started writing. So, you know, if you have some ideas, why don't you just start?
True.
Yeah, I think at least 6 months is what I would say. Um, Honestly, you could start now. Like anything comes up in your life, just have like, you know, somewhere in your nose, just kind of just jot it down and everything. But I think getting serious about it, I would say starting about 6 months before you're ready to apply is a pretty decent range. The more time you give yourself, the better it'll be, in my opinion. But I would say 6 months.
Okay.
I
Before
was with
Kiana
you.
answers,
Oh yeah,
Kiana, can you choose a number? Any number? Just call out a number.
22.
22. Okay. The code for today's attendance is 22. Please
Oh.
show the attendance. And then I'll let you proceed.
So I was looking for mine actually right now, and I started May 10th and I finished May 22nd, or sorry, June 22nd, June 22nd. And that's how long it took me to do mine. But this was in the summer, so I don't think I was taking any classes or anything at that time. So if you're in school, of course, give yourself more time. If you're working, give yourself more time. But I had like that the free couple of months where I was also studying for the DAT, and so I could kind of balance both. But if you have a lot going on, definitely give yourself more time. And then I also, like I was saying, I had like a good community of people to help me with it. So if you going in know that you don't really have that, or you know that you don't want certain people that are close to you to read your essays, give yourself more time to reach out to people that can read for you and edit for you. Perfect, because I don't have much time. Yeah, you got it.
So the other question was, how many hours do you set in a day towards your personal statement? I feel like the personal statement is almost as important as studying for the DAT. And also as how good of a writer you are. I know now with like ChatGPT, most people can knock out a 15-page paper in a day. However, for something like your personal statement, please do not use ChatGPT. They have systems in place where they can check to see if it was written by AI. So please don't use ChatGPT. But if you can dedicate as much time until it sounds like you, because I fell into the trap of going online and my favorite site, Student Doctor Network, and looking at all these samples, and I'm like, oh my goodness, I can never sound like that. That would never be me. But I turned in my personal statement when it sounded like me. So the amount of time that you would dedicate to your personal statement is as much time as it takes for it to sound like you. So if you're a good writer and you can do it in a week, great. But if you're someone that would need to revise and change the content, or if you have a whole lifetime of stories that you can pull from like me, and you have to change the content and change what you want to focus on, give yourself as much time as possible. So if you're applying this cycle, you should be in like your last revisions now. But then if you are not at that point, you still have time to get the resources and the help you can to get you to that point. Anyone want to add?
You said everything perfectly. So I can't add anything.
Boy, please add to that. I'll add to that. Okay. So since we're still waiting on and I just want to highlight that starting last month, we do have some funds for a scholarship. The scholarship is going to depend a lot. One of the factors for the scholarship is your participation. So I will post the link for the scholarship, but do fill out the attendance form because we're going to check the attendance form as part of your application. So we have this webinar today. We are going to have a mixer the third Saturday. Leah, please help me. We're going to have the third Saturday, I forget the day. But if you are available, do make it to those because those do count towards your attendance for the scholarship. And that is the attendance form. And I'll go ahead and paste the link to the application for the scholarship. But while I do that, there is a lot of talk. I know I've mentioned it about the whole holistic approach to application, where a lot of it appears as if a lot of emphasis is being placed on my personal statement. So if I am trying to get into dental school now, should I put my effort into passing the DAT or getting a good score on the DAT when I feel like I've reached my limit in booster and bootcamp? Or should I focus more on getting that killer personal statement? Where do you think my attention should be focused on? On the personal statement or the DAT studying, or do you think the holistic idea is just in theory?
I think it just kind of depends on a lot of factors. I think it's not really answerable. I would say both because I feel like it's definitely doable to do both. But I would, because the part of me wants to say the DAT, like, you know, if you put in the amount of work and everything, at the end of the day, once you take it, and that's done. But I feel like the personal statement is like, it's a closer translation. The more time you put in it, the more refined and better it will be. So I think just having the perfect balance of both, you never want to blow off one for the other. I guess that's the one thing I can say.
Anyone want to add?
I feel like the DAT, there's a line that I think that we need to cross first,
Mhm.
and then work on the statement. So I think I don't know what's the line. Well, it was,
It changes every year. I think in like a few years
but
the
I
average.
think at the time when I was applying, it was like 20 to 19, 20,
Think
something
so.
like that. And so if you have like something not more above 19 or 20, I think you should work on your statement than retaking the DAT.
So, Kiana, did you have anything to add before I go to my next question?
Yeah, sorry, I was answering something in the chat,
Yes,
but
thank you.
like I said that I actually put more emphasis on my DAT, like in terms of like hours in the day.
Mhm.
Because to me, I'm horrible with cramming. Like I'm just gonna forget everything that I studied if I don't give myself adequate time. And so that's why I put more emphasis on studying for that and solidifying the information long term, and then putting my essay kind of not on the back end, but I just spent less hours working on that. But I did spread it out things pretty evenly so that it wouldn't the stress wouldn't build up or anything like that. But that's just how I did things because I know that I'm not good at cramming tests. So
Okay, so let me change the scholarship permissions. I apologize for that. So for my next questions, because I have an unlimited number of questions. For my next question, then, what if I am just bad at taking exams? Like, what if I know what I'm doing, I know everything, but I'm just really, really bad at taking exams? Do you think I can write a killer personal statement to make up for it and explain that I'm just bad at taking exams? Or there is like no help for me by writing a killer personal statement because I could do well, but I'm really bad at standardized testing. Can my personal statement rescue me?
I think so. I've heard crazy stories of like just people able to get in with with lower test scores and everything. So I definitely think it's doable if you have a compelling if you truly do have a compelling story. I think there's a chance because there's just a lot of schools. Now I will say you do have to invest a lot of money and a lot of time as far as like applying to like a lot of schools outside of your state. Um, I definitely think that's something that is necessary, but at the same time, I don't think it's a done deal if you can't get like a 20 plus on your DAT or anything like that. I feel like if you have a compelling enough story, I feel as though you're able to get in into a school, if not quite a few schools.
I would say to this that I would ask like, is there a specific reason why you're not good at the standardized testing, whether that is you have condition, ADHD, or something that you can't sit through the test, or like you don't fully understand what the questions are asking, things like that. Because in the case that you do get a low score, they will want to still know like why, like what were your circumstances? Were you not, did you not give yourself enough time to study, or were there circumstances that where you could not study with enough time, like there's things that happen, personal things. But I did have a friend that scored lower than average on his stat and he still got in because I'm not sure if this is the reason why, but he did explain why his score was low. And then he also had really good essays and things like that. And so I definitely think that they can balance out, but there has to kind of be some kind of explanation, and you can use your optional essays to explain why maybe you were lacking in this area.
Well, I wish I can tutor you so that you can get a better DAT. But what I think is there's a three thing. One is GPA, one is DAT, and the other one is personal statement. If you didn't do well on your DAT, you better have a good GPA and personal statement. Like I would say, like if you not correct, but like got a good stuff on those 2 out of 3 component, I think you have a chance. Roma, you are on mute.
Story of my life. I'm so sorry. Did anyone else have anything else to add since we're pulling up on? Samira has a question. Oh, what embarrassed to go to SNDA because you have not taken the DAT? Go. It's in Vegas. Go. Don't even think about it. Go. A lot of us have hesitations. There is a name for it. What's that? Guys. Imposter syndrome. A lot of us feel like if we are in spaces where we don't feel like we measure up, everyone knows that we don't measure up. But for something like the convention, especially the SNDA convention, they have included it with the NDA convention. So it is both the US and the undergraduate SNDA, the SNDA convention, and the NDA convention. They have a lot of activities that they do. They have a lot of scholarships that they give out. But I feel like the most important thing is the networking. If you're thinking of going, if you can afford it, if you can make it there, do go. No one is going to ask you your DAT score. No one is going to, everyone will just see somebody that is interested in dentistry, and if they can help, they'll help. So if you can go. No one is going to ask you your score. But if I find you, I'll ask you just because you put it out there. For the experience, do you guys think that the admission team will focus on the amount of time spent during the particular experience? Our next session will be about your application, and then I think next month we're talking about the application because it is open and you need to start working on it. But next session we'll be talking about completing your application and making sure everything is complete. And then after that, I believe either July or August we'll have an interview session. And if you do have any questions before that time, do ask. But that'll be a good session to be on because we will try to have Our mentors that are part of the admissions team talk about what it is that they're looking for and help prep you. Because I remember last year, we actually had breakout sessions where they'll do a mock interview with you. However, your personal statement is so important because, as I mentioned, your personal statement is ready when it reflects you. If your personal statement is truly you, you have no problem talking about yourself. So whatever they choose to focus on, if you have been like honest and truthful and actually empathetic about describing yourself and talking about yourself, however time they spend on anything will be okay because you are ready for it. Because like when it comes to experience, do you all feel like it matters how much time you spent in an experience?
Personally, I wasn't asked any questions about the time spent, but I did have an interviewer commend me on the time spent on like one, it was like one service thing that I did all 4 years at UT, and he liked that, but I didn't, I wasn't asked any questions about like the time spent, or they didn't really put too much emphasis on the interviews that I was in. But maybe I would say for sure to have something that you kind of had some long-term commitment with, because I think that shows your commitment to that thing, whether it's service or shadowing or yeah, things like that.
And I'll just like to add that just be really careful about what you add or how much time you put into it. For instance, before coming to dental school, I am an ordained elder in the Presbyterian Church. I was in charge of our Christian education. I taught Sunday school for 12 years. My hours for that experience were in the thousands. I think it was 8,000. However, I had like the proof that I'm an ordained elder. I had a proof that I was in charge of the Christian Education Committee. I had proof for things like that. So an outrageous number, like 8,000, I had the backing for it. If you go put in 8,000 in an experience when you did it for 2 years, it is not realistic. So if you are going to put a certain amount of hours, make sure it is something that you can back up. If you say you've done 1,000 hours, there are some basic questions that they can ask of you that you should be able to answer because you've done 1,000 hours. So if you feel like that experience or that time in that experience is a lot, just be able to back it up. Make sense?
I think it does.
Anyone? Anyone have anything else to add? If I don't know if the panelists are okay with sharing their emails, but I'm going to share mine. If you would like to reach out to any of the panelists, please let me know. I cannot spell to save my soul. Dentistry.org. So if you do reach out to me, we have all of you on, most of you are on our group chat. I'm going to post the link for that again. Why is not letting me do this? Leah, can you please post the link? Sorry, Leah is the amazing assistant.
You're fine. You want me to post the link for the
The link for
chat?
the WhatsApp.
Okay.
So even for our panelists, our WhatsApp has both our pre-dental and dental students. A lot of people cannot make the time for when we have our activities, so we do have that resource for them in case they want to ask questions or have any issues. I do know at some point they had like a study group, so we do have that available. If you all are interested in joining, I will add you all. Just kidding. If you are interested in joining, it will be a good thing to help our mentees because I'm sure we all know when we were applying to dental school, an opportunity like this to actually talk with people that have gone through it and get their feedback and their ideas is like really rare. And I really appreciate you all so much for agreeing to do this because some people have that knowledge and are not comfortable sharing it. So I really appreciate you all being willing to share with our mentees. If you do have any other questions, please do let us know. We'll be glad to help. If any of the panelists have shared their contact information, do understand that we are dental students and our life is not yet balanced. So give us grace in the time that will take to respond to you. But if you have any issues or any questions or anything that you think you need help with, let us know. If you're not on the mailing list, please do try to get on the mailing list. This has been an amazing session with a lot of information, but this is our third time doing it. We have other sessions as well on our YouTube channel. Believe me, you'll get more insights. And even me, when I go back and watch this, I'm like, ooh, that was a good one. So do take advantage of that, and all the best as you apply for this cycle. And I'll go ahead and stop the recording. You don't have to leave if you don't want to.